Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm Raynor Smith with Building Clarity. We focus on the outcomes in the built environment. We do analytics, engineering, program management, and construction services. So my conversation with you this morning is going to be really focused around buildings and the built environment, which obviously is part of a city. I'll start with the objectives that the cities are dealing with today, their mission, how those relate to cities, and then how technology plays a role in these cities bringing these objectives together. So like most organizations, cities have strategic objectives too. And they're very similar to businesses, the businesses that you work for, the businesses that you serve as your customer base. Risk management, efficiency, and productivity. Everybody now wants to make data-driven decisions. Obviously, cost reductions, customer satisfaction. And these objectives are in place to serve their core mission, the organization's core mission. In the space of a city, their mission is to provide safety, transportation, and a wide range of services to their customer base, again, their citizens. Those services, they range from tax collection to waste and recycling to education to arts and parks and rec. So there's a lot going on in a city, and so these objectives are critical to how they advance and deal with their citizen base. There's a new strategic objective. I'm sure you've all are dealing with this in some sort or another, maybe within your own business, maybe within your customer base. But in the last year, we have seen just this huge tidal wave of goals for emissions reduction. So these are just a few examples of local organizations to where we're at today in Florida. So Duke Energy, a utility, pledges to be carbon neutral. You've got Orlando, Miami just recommitted. I think that was January 25th, so about a week ago. Miami is amongst about 90 cities who have pledged to be carbon neutral. So in the next 10 to 30 years, there's this goal for these cities to have a positive impact on their environment or on the environment. And whether you believe in global warming or not, we certainly need to be better stewards of our resources. So you've got this new trend with emissions reduction as well as the other objectives we just reviewed. So how does facilities play in this? Well, the buildings in a city are at the core of how the city serves its core mission and those strategic objectives. You think about the people that are in the buildings, right? So the planners, the elected officials, the educators, the folks who are making the city run 24/7, 365. You think about the data, the financial data, the historical data, the data on the citizens, lots of data housed in those buildings, and then the assets, fire trucks, HVAC equipment, wastewater equipment, computers and IT infrastructure. You look at the new big goal around emissions reduction. Buildings consume about 40% of the U.S.'s energy consumption. So it's a huge piece of that emission goal, and we know there's ability to save 30 to 50% of that in the buildings. So buildings become a vital part of the city's infrastructure, their operations, and how they achieve those objectives. So as we then look at, okay, we've got the objectives, we understand how buildings play into that. What is the day in the life of a facility operator? If you're not in that industry, it's quite an interesting day. So we've got, these facility managers have these corporate objectives, the strategic mandates, but they've got day-to-day stuff they're dealing with, just like you do, right? They've got to fill out budgets, they've got to check all the boxes and all the forms, they've got to deal with personnel issues. Then they've got their projects, right? So there's construction projects going on, there's improvement projects, and then staffing challenges. So in the facility industry, we have every 7 that retire, there are only 3 that are coming in to backfill those positions. So there is a huge gap in staffing. The retiring workforce is a major problem in facilities. So again, these facility managers have all these day-to-day problems. And they're always reactive, right? Every day is a new fire. And when you live in that world, you cannot step back and think about, hey, I got to get carbon neutral in the next 30 to 50 years. Or, hey, how are we going to be more efficient in how we serve our citizens? It's literally just a day-to-day firefight. So we then come to technology. So how can technology help these facility operators? How can technology help buildings achieve the core mission of the city? For all of us, we're here because we understand that technology. We're already using it. It's in play in all sorts of large business, specifically here around process and automation. So how can it impact facilities? And why has there not been a long-term trend of big data, data collection, and analytics in the facilities? It should be easy, right? All we have to do is stream a bunch of data out of automation systems and combine it with financial data, IT data, and other operations data. Let's just get that data and let's visualize it, and let's go help these poor facility managers who are in a firefight be more productive and more targeted at their approach. Well, the reality is this is what's going on in the technology front in buildings. Tons of systems, they're all siloed. Almost none of them talk to each other or on the same platform or on the same network. And in addition to the traditional systems around finance and accounting and operations, the BAS data, the building automation data, is old. They're legacy systems, they're proprietary communication protocols, and it is very, very hard to get that data out. So our approach in building clarity is using IoT gateway and some patent pending software. We're able to get that data out of those proprietary systems, massive amounts of data, not just necessarily the sensor data, but also what we call the virtual data, or the calculated points that rely on the controllers. We're able to build a model of how the building should be operating, or the lighting system, or the solar system, or the utility system, and using analytics, help those facility operators find where they've got problems. Once we have that automation data, then we can start correlating to the other systems, the maintenance systems, the work order system, financial systems, the sustainability reporting systems. So a case study, City of Durham, they started on this journey a few years ago. They issued an RFP around a smart city initiative. And they had all those systems that we listed earlier, and we weren't quite sure where to start. So it was a pretty extensive RFP. We responded around the facility and the building space. They selected Building Clarity and our partner SAS to start in the buildings. So we started with the hardest part. The scenario is just like we laid out earlier. They had people retiring. They couldn't figure out where to start solving problems, where to focus their time. So we put our IoT gateway on their network. Turns out their network was a disaster. We spent the large majority of our time helping them get their IT infrastructure up to date and getting their data to a point where it could be collected, it could be prepped, and made analytics ready. We use data scientists and building expertise. So it's not just the data science component. You've got to have folks that are looking at the data and looking at the visualization that know what it means and can help the city figure out where to start. So we started in one building. It was their general services building. We found the things that you might expect. So HVAC systems were running when they weren't supposed to. They were actually scheduled in the automation system to be off at nights and weekends. So the normal user of the automation system, as far as they knew, everything was fine. The analytics discovered that was not the case. Unit heaters were running 24/7, and the list kind of goes on and on. The end result was a 15% savings in their operating cost. They've now committed to rolling the program out across all their facilities. We're in phase 1 of that right now. We're going to do half of those buildings in 2020 and the next half in 2021. And from there, we will start to pull in the other systems. So they will have this unified platform of how they collect data, how they stream the data to the cloud, how that data is prepped, and combining the streaming data with the financial data, the work order data. They will be well on their way to a smart city platform starting in the buildings. This is a very, very simple visualization of energy consumption and their emissions goals. Certainly, we can certainly get much more complex in our analytical models, as I'm sure all of you are familiar with. But just using this simple dashboard, they ended up putting it in the lobby of one of their buildings, and it was to begin to gain engagement with their citizens and their employees. And now everyone's understanding how buildings play into their smart city goals. So even very simple visualizations, once you can get that data shown, can have big impacts. So Building Clarity's delivered this project with City of Durham. We've done it across all industries. When you think about smart cities, it's not just the city, right? It's also the hospital and the school and all the other organizations that reside in the city and around the city. So the big picture from there is how do we start then bringing in the county and the state and private industry and use this technology to make our city smarter. So again, I'm Raynor Smith with Building Clarity. I appreciate you all having me. Enjoy speaking with you and maybe answering some questions later. Thanks.